G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 28th of April 2026. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, and as the war continues, I'll continue to bring my perspective on the war. Sorry about that. Now, there have been drone attacks on both sides, of course, and there's a lot of fighting. However, there is some progress. The Russians have made small progress here in the north, capturing a village, and they've made some progress here and there on the map. Now, there's a lot of activity. The biggest breakthrough, of course, is the collapse of the Ukrainian lines here, with several towns being overrun, and the Russians are once again on the outskirts of Kupiansk. The Russians have also advanced here on Prichovia, and they've taken all this. Remember? All this empty space. As I said, once it falls, did I not tell you it was coming? Alright, so as we go around, there's also been some advances here, but not much. Mostly here. Now, with more of this river under Russian control, and control of this crossing here and pushing the Ukrainians back will allow Russian drone boats to operate on the river to begin major resupply operations. That's important. They have a few areas which they still have to secure. But with this river, apparently, from Seversk, they can bring more supplies up. Yeah, well, how far does the river go? I forget now, but the Donets River, yeah. That'll enable them to move directly towards Seversk, able to bring up men and supplies as they go down the river. Basically following the river on both sides, clearing the Ukrainians, and they are able to fan out and set up resupply points. Once they capture this area, they will be able to dominate all of this area with artillery. They're bringing up more artillery and more men to focus, and that will drain the defensive linemen and others, and begin the concerted flanking that's required of the fortress city of Kremenskov. It's a forward assault. You have multiple military bases, front and back and sides, but the two sides. Now, altogether, there's about 380,000. This is $11 billion over 11 years spent building up these fortresses. Europe was planning a war with Russia all along. That's why they rigged election after election to keep having the same leadership in. The UK seems to be the only one completely destabilised in their operations, but that's neither here nor there. Two major advances here, able to secure the river, bringing up more men and equipment. They'll be able to soon fill in this gap, and they'll be able to head towards Seversk, cutting off linemen, of course. The only other area today reported of advances is north of Kostanovka, here. The Russians pressuring Manesky and others. But as you can see, they've taken territory here. Now, there are minor ripples across the front line. Street fighting continues in Rodinsky. The Russians are fighting here as well. Capture of this will enable again the Russians to use these rivers to bring men and supplies up once they've completed operations here at Haishny. They are fighting now on both sides of the river in a concerted effort, pushing up. And the next major junction will be, they'll bypass this, take this, and that will create a cascade effect, cutting the Ukrainians off. And as we go around the map, they traded this territory for this territory, and now they're fighting back. You know, they let the Ukrainians sometimes capture territory, like Ilyichovka and Moscovia, simply to trade for other territory, for more secure positions, to then rain fire down on those positions that they have lost. The same here. You know, you're not going to win every battle, but they're definitely grinding away. Zaporozhye is the fiercest fighting for the least amount of gains. Because Ukraine knows once the Russians take Zaporozhye, right, that they're going to be unable to dig them out. They've been unable to push in Kherson. They were able to take Kherson because it's a big open area. The Russians had no fortification positions, but they did have fallback positions, which they decided to take. Praised by Putin for saving lives. Taking Kherson apparently cost the Ukrainians 30,000 men. The new heroes never die, remember? Yeah, all that cope. So, we know more about Ukrainian attacks on Russia, which are pinprick attacks, by the way, than the hundreds of 123 drone strikes on Ukraine. Oh, no military target was hit. We can't show you anything. You know, they won't show you anything. Now, remember the Armata project. The Armata project, well, the T-14 isn't scrapped. It's the intermediary technology to developing the T-20. Yeah, they're going backwards in their numbers. So, yeah. But for now, a lot of the T-14 technology is now going into two projects. The T-15 infantry fighting vehicle, which again is more a concept vehicle, changing design philosophies in the BTR. But eventually it will be another scrapped project that will eventually, it gives you more size of the scale. That's the commander position. It's a rear heavy tank, light tank, but it does have Cornet, 12.7 millimeter commander turret, smoke. There's the driver crew, the crew, free front with the crew. That's a remote turret with the crew in. You got the crew in the free, and the passenger section for 6 soldiers. Like all infantry fighting vehicles, they look pretty big on the outside, but they're pretty cramped on the inside. Everybody bending up, everybody sitting there, crumped in that. Yeah. Fighting vehicles are perhaps more necessary than tanks. Mobility on the battlefield is important. And of course, they are going to be backed up by drones. Now, the thing is, how many times are they going to show the same thing? Oh, we shut them all down. Yeah. So, 93 were intercepted. What did the other 30... Oh, wait. Almost 30. 27 hit. Sorry. My math hard. Sorry. Having a blonde moment here, so... 28, sorry, not 27. 28. I knew this. Yeah, so what did the other 28 hit? Well, the Russians only target hospitals, schools, and little old ladies. Yeah. What do you not see? That's right. There's no scorching. These drone parts are all out of order. They're just thrown there and said, here, look, she had. Yeah, this is the false flag mentality. All right, so we have more pictures of destruction in Russia than we do in Ukraine. Fire broke out. This is the Russians telling you, yeah, we had a fire. Ukrainian military attacked several districts with drones. Pardon me. The thing is, we've noted before tensions between Zelensky and the SBU. Now, Zelensky had to get rid of his longtime friend, Andrei Yemek. Why? Because he was corrupt as the day is long. He stole 100 million, and distributed amongst his friends. Zelensky denies receiving anything, and he's under pressure. The head of the Ukrainian Intelligence Directorate, the GRU, is a critic of the president and his lack of progress. He managed to convince Parliament to elevate him over one of other Zelensky's friends. And since then, there's been tension between Zelensky and anti-corruption bodies such as the NABU and the SBU. Well, those are the only two. But also, don't forget, there's also the Office of State Prosecutors, the State Prosecutor. Now, the Ukrainian security forces, the SBU, are also at odds with Zelensky over security issues. As the state starts running out of money, Zelensky's having to cut back on everything. He's basically trying to spread everything thin and hold on for as long as he can. The clearest signs of shift of power is talk of Budayev running for office. He's not the only one, but he has given speeches indicating that at the moment he's not interested. Well, that's because Zelensky's extended martial law. There's no one who can run for office. There's no office to run for. Zelensky has closed the doors on elections 3 times in a row now since his term has expired, and he will continue to extend his terms in office using national emergency as an excuse, where he can end the national emergency by declaring a ceasefire with Russia, and then that would expose Russia and open them up to huge damage. But so far, the Russian forces have been grinding on and have taken Ilyichovka in Donetsk and in Serbia. This opens up all of this to just start once like I said, once the Russians gain momentum, instead of going straight for the highway, straight down their throat through Lyman, they will be able to fight along both sides of the river, get into artillery positions. Once they start clearing the forest, bringing up artillery. Through here, as you can see, setting up probably here to fire on. It's the best. Now, the Ukrainians probably have multiple barriers to that plan, of course, but eventually, once they've taken this position, start controlling the crossroads here, all this will be unable to be resupply. So they'll be able to come through here, eventually come through and cut this off, which causes a cascade effect of slowly starving all this out, because they have to shift to taking longer to resupply, getting closer to resupply under fire, and puts more pressure on the troops here because they have to funnel troops north and south now to hold their flanks, particularly if Sylvesk falls. But after Sylvesk falls, it won't be easy because now they're back to overland routes. It also depends how many boats they can bring up. No doubt Ukraine will try to counter all this. And it's not necessary that Russia will go that way. They may still focus on Lyman and the overland route, even though they have to clear the road of mines, dead vehicles, etc. Now, the recent missile attack somewhere in here apparently took out a Abrams workshop and has delayed Abrams returning to the field. Ukraine has not shown the Abrams for some time. They also had problems with Challengers, who are currently, I believe, in Poland, getting fixed, or Romania. They're also having, people are starting to believe that Ukraine's Air Force is flying out of Bucharest and southern Poland. Europe is slowly inching its way from supplier, neutral supplier, to participant in the war. I know why Russia wants a Russian victory. It's not just a matter of national pride. It's the matter of North Koreans will go home. But if you have 1 million Chinese enter Russia, they won't go home, like the Chinese who went to Africa to fight for the various forces of liberation won't go home, or the forces of liberation in South America who won't go home. And they're having troubles because once they demobilize their army, they can't afford their army. They've had to abandon them in parts of the world now. China is suffering. Russia's suffering. The Russian economy, the Russians can't sustain a very large military. They have an economy the size of Italy. But somehow 500 million Europeans want 20 plus, or 30, let's say 30 million Ukrainians to defeat 140 million Russians when they're backed by 1 billion Chinese and 1 billion Indians. And the Indians they know there's no mutual defence pact, but this is all Europe playing a dangerous game, and it has to stop. But Ukraine is losing territory. Sooner or later, there will be, as I said, I've said it often, there will be a coup in Ukraine. That's the only way Ukraine is going to end the war, is the military to turn around and admit that unless they get 1 million men from Europe, this is what this so-called 2 million Ukrainians is all about. But it's not going to happen. Europe will eventually suffer the consequences of their actions. They already are suffering the consequences of their actions, failing to grow their economy, losing. Okay, they're losing momentum. For decades, they've allowed China to get away with not paying import duties or taxes on stuff like Temu and Alibaba. And now that they're starting to collect taxes, everything, the deindustrialization, the false economy of Europe, basically the economy of printed money, is catching up with France. All these government jobs is printed money. They print money, hand it out in government jobs, and then rip off the people at the pump with overpriced fuel, engage in slimy deals with Iran and Iraq, undermining the US position because we want to hurt Trump. And so, again, because Trump won't support their war in Ukraine, they want to hurt Trump in Iran. So Ukraine's suffering because of the evil ambitions of Macron, Merkel, and, well, I forget who started on the British side, but let's just say Keir Starmer is now the boogeyman in chief who wants to basically turn Britain into NSOC, Airstrip 1, take over America. Yay, look at us, we're the real superpower again. Yeah. Your superpower. Yeah. I don't think anybody today understands the British Empire that much. It was put together by deals, not by violence. It was backed by violence, but that violence of British officers and Indian troops was also, don't forget, African nations poured Africans also into the British Army to go and fight other Africans because they didn't, because it was economically feasible, viable, and more superior, the choice to be part of the British Empire than it was to fight the British Empire. Because then you got to fight your neighbours backed by British guns. And the British weren't stupid enough, unlike the Russians. Right? The British didn't give their artillery to the nations they occupied. They kept the forts under British control and the guns under British control. This is the mistake the Russians made with and now they're coping and seething as they're forced to retreat, as China is now pushing Russia out of Africa. And we're good friends with the global south. So sooner or later, it's the same with Russia being pushed out of Iraq, Iran, Sudan, Mali. The Russians are still, however, able to recover their economy because most of their manufacturing is shifted back home. Most of their domestic economy is still slowly growing. Most of their they have so much room to grow. They have resources, so they don't really need Africa. So why is China in Africa? To counter the West, and it's costing China a fortune. They're not making money. Their African projects are all failing because they're economically unviable. They're trying to impose Chinese wages and working conditions on Africa. And believe it or not, Africans in some places have better living conditions than the Chinese. If you can believe that. Because the Africans actually want to dig themselves out of poverty. No, Ukraine is a huge distraction that will come to an end. And I could be wrong. Right? Budev may be playing the long game and has done a deal with Zelensky to be his immediate successor when the ceasefire kicks in. Now, we haven't heard anything more about the peace deal or peace offering that is going on. Right now, Moscow's put that on hold for peace talks in Iran. Iranian foreign minister is in Moscow. They try to hammer out a deal. They try to claim the Strait of Hormuz, split it down the middle, try to get deals with Oman to support Iran, offering them a cut of the take. I see, again, this is why the USS Cole was attacked in Oman, to try and drive the Americans out. This was part of China's long-term strategy. I think Russia was still in on the game at the time, but Russia more and more is finding itself isolated from BRICS, its very organization that created with Brazil. Brazil is increasingly pro-China and anti-Russian at times, blaming the Russians for shit. I think Lula literally used, when he was speaking, actually said shitty deals, right? But the real shitty deals is the Chinese Temu, basically low quality, low value, mass garbage produced items that they claim to be high value military technology. Now, Russia, Russia, for all its advances and all, is struggling in Ukraine. There's no doubt about it now. But the reason why they're struggling is that they were and are being undermined by China. China is yanking its chain, right? Every so often, China will give Russia just enough ammunition to get by, and then they turn around and say, no, for national security, we need to hold on to these 2 million rounds, even though we got 200 million rounds. These 2 million rounds that you need this week, no, we'll send them next week because for national security. So, and again, Russia is also being undermined by China selling ammunition to Ukraine through Sudan. You really think Sudan is selling Ukraine ammunition from Sudan, made in Sudan? Now, any ammunition made in Africa all comes from China. It's all imported from China. But Ukraine is moving away from the AK-97. They claim it's captured equipment. No, it's all bought from China. They're moving away from it because the barrel life is too short. They're trying to acquire more M4s, I believe, from Europe. Though the British keep trying to sell them. Oh, we got plenty of these battle rifles, and everybody says no to European battle rifles because they're just as shitty as the Chinese ones. So, one of the reasons why Ukraine is struggling, Russia's struggling because of ammunition shortage, but Ukraine's struggling because shitty equipment from Europe. Which is why they're so desperate to get America to send them stuff. And Europe is not very happy. It's the same with the Caesar. It looks good on paper, but its barrel life is nowhere near that of the M777. And as artillery nears the end of its life, it gets less and less accurate. And all this talk of laser guided, I don't see Russia mass producing the M3 right at the moment. I don't see success that indicates that anything new has made a change to the battlefield. There's lots of dots, lots of attacks, But either Ukraine is prepared to absorb huge losses and are sending women to the front now, which is a clear sign they are falling short on manpower. And I think this whole talk about 2 million Ukrainians is a lie. I don't think there's 1 million Ukrainians able to fight. I think most of the Ukrainians outside of Ukraine are just quietly trying to get away, right? But the fact is, one of the things that was clear is that there's a clear money laundering operation that was going on, that the people behind it haven't stopped. They're overcharging for food. Everything in Ukraine is way overpriced. They're blaming the war, yet most of it is aid. So why is it being sold at all? It should be given to the people of Ukraine. It's already paid for. But the Ukrainian state is double dipping. They get free food and then they sell it. But all the aid organisations just go, yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles, because they have no morals. All they care about is their $495,000 paychecks. So, when it comes to war, there is no... Oh, forgot to reset. Bad boy. So when it comes to war, there is no morality. There is only power. There is only truth, and that's a liberal motto. There is only truth but power. There is no truth but power. That's a liberal motto. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. Support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate you, each and every one of you. And remember, according to Ilan Moha, there's 11 world wars. So yeah, that's the genius that the liberals are. Bye for now.